Jarrell Miller was listed as one of the 3 potential opponents for Dillian Whyte in December. But Jarrell Miller, in this interview right here with the Boxing Voice, has ruled himself out. He has a 2-fight deal, I believe, with DAZN and Eddie Hearn. After that, he's a free agent again, and he will see who is offering him the best deal at that point, whether it's HBO, Showtime, etc. And right now, he's going to have a fight on DAZN against Thomas Adamek, and then he's looking to fight Manuel Charr for the WBA regular belt. And because of that, that's what his focus is, and he's not interested in a fight against Dillian Whyte. And Nesta Gibbs on the Boxing Voice is pretty surprised when he hears Jarrell Miller say that. Jarrell Miller said, "What am I going to fight Dillian Whyte for?" And Nesta says, "Because there's a lot of money. Dillian Whyte's fighting on pay-per-views in the UK now, headlining his own pay-per-view cards. There's a lot of money in that fight for you." And Jarrell says, "Well, I can go fight Manuel Charr, then I've got a belt, then I can come back to the negotiating table with anybody and demand even more money." So that's his rationale, that's his reasoning for rejecting a fight against Dillian Whyte in December. Now, as for Dillian Whyte, what's he going to do in this situation? Well, now he's got 2 choices, essentially. Out of the 3 that they mentioned, he's got Dominic Breazeale and he's got Derek Chisora in a rematch. The Chisora rematch, I would imagine, would make a lot more money in the UK. So from a financial perspective, that would be the best option for Dillian Whyte. But if he wants to continue pushing the WBC route and try and force a title shot against Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury, whoever holds the WBC belt by the end of the year, if he wants to go that route, then a fight against Dominic Breazeale will be best for Dillian Whyte. So he has to decide what he wants to do. Some people have talked about a fight against Luis Ortiz. Yeah, it's a good fight. A fight I'd like to see. But if you were in Dillian Whyte's position, are you going to take on Breazeale to be the #1 WBC mandatory and get your shot at Deontay Wilder first? Or would you fight Ortiz, which is arguably a tougher fight, and have to wait even longer to get your WBC mandatory shot? Which would you do? I know there are going to be people saying Dillian Whyte's ducking and he should fight Ortiz. Okay, think about it logically. If you were managing Dillian Whyte is self-managed, by the way, but let's hypothetically say you were managing Dillian Whyte, would you put him in the WBC fight where he gets his title shot first? Or would you put him in the WBC fight where he has to wait for someone else to get their shot first? What would you do? What makes logical sense? I'll just ask you that question. So right now, Big Baby Miller and Dillian Whyte are on different paths, it seems. And Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz are on different paths. And for those saying that Dillian Whyte is ducking Ortiz and he's scared to death, may I remind you that Dillian Whyte called out Luis Ortiz several years ago when Dillian Whyte was in a different position, when he wasn't so highly ranked. He was calling out Ortiz. And that was when Ortiz was promoted by the same promoter. They were both with Matchroom. And Dillian Whyte was calling out Ortiz. If he's so scared of Ortiz, why was he calling him out when they were both promoted by Matchroom? And why didn't Ortiz really respond to Dillian Whyte when Whyte was calling him out back then? You know, sometimes as fans, we overlook the fact that it would be ridiculous for fighters in certain positions to take certain fights. And like Jarrell Miller right now, for him to take the Dillian Whyte fight, that wouldn't be ridiculous because there's more money in the Dillian Whyte fight than there is in the Manuel Charr fight. I understand he's playing a long game. I understand what he's doing. But, you know, it wouldn't be a ridiculous fight for Jarrell Miller to take because there'd at least be something there to compensate. It's like when Dillian Whyte fought Joseph Parker. For one, that's a very tough fight against a former champion with only 1 loss. A young guy, a guy in his prime. And for 2, it's a big money fight. So there's reasons to take a fight like that. Logical reasons. It was his first time headlining a pay-per-view. Because of the Anthony Joshua fight, Joseph Parker had some market value in the UK because of the fact that he had his name up in lights next to Anthony Joshua just a few months prior to fighting Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte took advantage of that, took a tough fight against Parker, came through. It made sense. Particularly in retrospect, when I think about the big picture. Going into the fight, I was a little perplexed, to be honest with you. But in retrospect, especially given the numbers it did, it really does make sense. But for Dillian Whyte to fight Ortiz, it's a fight I'd like to see. But in Dillian's position, does it make sense? You answer that. Does it? What does he gain right now? Because he's number one in the WBC, even though he's not mandatory. If he fights Brazil, he becomes the first mandatory right now, if he wins that fight. If he fights Ortiz, he still doesn't become the first mandatory. And Ortiz, to me, is the smallest fight. Well, no, let me not say it's the smallest fight, but I would say Ortiz is a smaller fight than a Miller fight. Yeah. And he's a smaller fight than Chisora too in the UK. Because Ortiz doesn't speak English. He's not very well known in the UK. He fought in what was it, Monaco, when he fought Malik Scott. He did fight once in the UK against Dave Allen. But he's not as known in the UK as certainly Derek Chisora. And he doesn't have the mouth, because he don't speak English, of a Jarrell Miller. So yeah, for right now, Dillian Whyte, I think the logical options for him in terms of money or rankings is either going to be Chisora or Dominic Brazil. If he decided to go a different route and fight Ortiz, I mean, great for the fans, but logically, is it the best move for him? Is he progressing doing that? Is that the quickest route to Deontay Wilder? You guys tell me in the comment section below. It is what it is. It's unfortunate that Big Baby has ruled himself out, because that's a fight I'd really like to see. That's a fight I'd really like to see. And I think that fight right there could sell very well in the UK in terms of a pay-per-view event. It could sell very well. I think Miller versus Whyte would sell better in the UK than Whyte versus Brazil in the UK. I do think so. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.